All right, we are in chapter 17 of Revelation. We are coming to the conclusion of the 7 years of tribulation. We saw all the judgments of the 6 seal judgments, the seven seal judgments, 7 trumpet judgments, and now the 7 bowl judgments took place in chapter 16. And we saw all those have taken place. So all the judgments that God is pouring out pretty much on the earth has been taking place. Now 17 and 18, it's not like the 7th bowl judgment. This is a continuation of it. Or the 7 bowl judgments. This is a continuation. This is the result of it. This is what it caused. I mean, we saw where it caused great devastation on the earth with earthquakes and the water being no good to drink and the trees and stuff and all these things taking place on each one of the bowl judgments. But now in 17 and 18 is going to be kind of the result of those things of what it's all coming to an end. It's all coming to the head and God wins. Just like he planned, just like he purposed. It's all in his hands and it's working out exactly how he said it would work. And so we're in just a continuation of that. Just keep that in mind. Now, it's not like this is a separate event now in chapter 17 and 18. This is a result of what's happened so far as God has poured out his wrath on the earth. There's been a revolt by Satan, the Antichrist, the false prophet, the people of the world that want to go up against God. And he's just showing us here how it's all coming to an end. So chapter 17 verse 1, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now we saw in chapter 13, who is that? Well, that's Babylon, but in particular, you had the dragon that come out is who? Satan come up out of the sea, right? And then you had the first beast, which is who? And then the second beast in chapter 13 is who? The false prophet, the false church. Okay? And this is who he's talking about here. I will show you the judgment of the false church or the great whore. A lot of people say, oh, this is Israel because they've turned on God. This is not Israel. This is the false religious system of the 7-year period. And it's coming to an end tonight in this study. Did you have something? Oh, I thought you said something. But if you want to go back and look at that in chapter 13, verse 11, and I beheld another beast come up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. So he come sort of gentle, but he spoke blasphemies. Remember, he made the whole world to worship the beast, to bow down and to take the mark of the beast, and saying that the beast is all this, and even did wonders and signs in the heavens, and made the statue speak, and all these things in Revelation 13. So we saw this is what the false prophet or the false church, the religious system. And look, this is not a new thing. You know, now you ever seen these, when I see these bumper stickers, can't we just coexist? And it's got all the different religions and symbols and stuff. No, I mean, it's not that I'm trying to be mean or that we shouldn't witness to all these different religions. But no, you can't coexist. There is one God, one Savior, and there's only way to God. One way to God. So no, we don't coexist. But this is setting up. This is building up for this false religious system. The whole world will coexist. The Muslims will come together with Catholics and that are left, and then all the different the Buddhists and all those people are going to come together under one religious system and worship the beast. okay, and give him power, and he's going to be, and all the kings of the earth will come, and it says in verse 2, and with whom the kings of the earth had committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth had been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. The kings of the earth, what is that? Why is it made drunk? Does it mean they actually all just had a big party and drank a bunch of wine? No, that's not what that's saying. If you go to the verse that says, be not drunk with wine, where in Ephesians, be not drunk with wine wherein in excess, but be filled by the Holy Spirit. That whole verse is not talking about drinking wine. It's saying what is controlling you. Okay, so when it says here they've been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, they were controlled by this false church, even the kings of the earth. So they were, the false church had great influence, and the false prophet had great influence over all the world rulers of the world, where they all followed him. In verse 3, so he carried me away. This is John saying, the angel carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemies, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So we see here that what it's saying here, I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. All right, who's the woman? The false church. So who would be the scarlet-colored beast?
Satan.
If you go to 13 again, this is the Antichrist. Satan is always the dragon. Does that make sense? So why is she sitting upon this beast? It's symbolic. She's like riding his coattail. The beast is in control. Remember, at the beginning of the tribulation, he gave an answer as to, I believe, he comes up with a covenant to Israel for peace and to rebuild the temple. And I believe during that time he also gives an answer as to why all the church people are gone. Remember I said that before? He's got an explanation for everything going on, and the world says, this guy's super smart. Well, then halfway through the tribulation, he does the abomination of desolation. He turns on Israel. He sets himself up in the Holy of Holies as God, to be worshiped as God. The false prophet and the false church joins right in and says, yes, you need to worship him. And so this basically what it's saying is this false church is riding on or under the authority of or with the Antichrist, excuse me. I'll get it out here in a minute. So she's riding the beast, the Antichrist. She's along with his authority, she has a lot of the same authority. Okay, does that make sense? So then verse 4, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. So verse 4 basically to me, and we can speculate, and there's a lot of people that do, what all this means about the precious stones and the pearls and all that. What I want you to draw from that is that it is a very wealthy organization of royalty, very highfalutin, very influential throughout the world. Okay, and a lot of people try to take the purple and the scarlet and the color decked in gold, and what John is basically telling us is very wealthy organization. You could name some right now that are very stinking wealthy and prominent in all the world. And I'll just say the Catholic Church, very wealthy, very, very, very wealthy. And you see the Pope come out and he's treated like royalty and he's all decked out and all this stuff. And it's just a picture of the authority that this false church has and the money behind it during this time. Does that make sense? So now verse 5, and on her forehead was written a name, Mystery Babylon. Now remember, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. This is from God's perspective. The world is not saying, oh, the false prophet and the false church, Mystery Babylon, the great harlot. They're not, that's not on their billboard outside their church if they had a church. They're not putting that. This is God's perspective of what he thinks or what he sees or knows about this false church and this false religious system. It's an abomination. It's a mystery to a lot of people that don't understand it, and it's an abomination. It's great in power, but it's the mother of harlots. Throughout the ages, there has been religious systems that imitate what God's doing, that try to do these things. This is the mother of them all. Because, you have all these different religions that try to say how I get to God and how you get to God and do all these different things, and everybody's going all their separate ways. But during this time, in this 7-year period, the whole world is going to come together under this one system and coexist. That's why when I see that, I get the EBGBs when I see that bumper sticker. Because I know what that means ultimately. I know what it's pointing to, and this is what he's saying. First, a mystery is just something that really takes spiritual understanding to get. It's something that revealed that you didn't quite see or didn't understand until a specific time that was revealed, and the angel will reveal that to John in just a minute. So it's a mystery church, never seen before, never been on earth before, where the whole world come together under one false religion. We'll talk about it maybe a little more in just a few minutes. But the great mystery and Babylon the Great. Now, we talked about this a little bit, but Babylon, where did it start? Huh? The Tower of Babel. That's where we get it from. That is the first world system that tried to come up against God. Actually, Babel means the gate of God. Okay, so the Tower of Babel was trying to reach God, to be like God, all the way back in Genesis chapter 10. So there's been many Babylons or Babel throughout history. There's actually, we know the Babylonians captured Israel when God punished them. There's been many things like that down through the ages, but the Babel means the gate of God, and this Tower of Babel was, like I said, an attempt to defy God. I got it a little backwards there. So Babel became, after God judged them, became a place of confusion. So really a false Babylon or a Babylon is going to be confusion, really. It may look like it's good, but it's man trying to understand God, man trying to be like God, and actually they don't have it figured out at all. I'm just trying to tie this in help you to understand that the Babylons, there are physical Babylon, the Babylonians, Babel. There's a place now just south of Kuwait. No, I was going to remember it. There's a city, and just south, they call it the area of Babylon. Babylon the Governorate, I think they call it. Look it up on Google Map. It's there already. Is it the actual city? Could be. The river Euphrates runs right down through it. It's the center focal point of the Middle East. It could, several people have made comments that this would be a great place to have like a United Nations hub. Not really the United, but a hub that would control the world, because it's right in the center of everything. Has a great water source. It's a good transit area between Egypt and all these things. It's a good travel area. Could it be a literal city? I think it could be, but I think that's limiting to what he's trying to tell us what Babylon is here. I believe Babylon, technically, when he talks about Babylon, oh, Babylon has fallen, he's in the next chapter, he's not talking about an actual city as much as he says a world system. So when he refers to this false prophet or the false church as the Babylon the Great, it's the world religious system that's controlled by. Does that make sense? It's a place that it's a religion that defies God. Maybe I need a drink of water. My tongue's sticking to my top of my mouth or something. So I'm hoping that makes sense. But so we see where Babylon, the Tower of Babel is where Babylon started, and there are physical places. But I think in the reference of the last chapter, the next chapter, and some other places, and when it talks about Babylon in Revelation, I'm not so sure it's talking about a specific place. It could be, because we saw that the Antichrist had a seat where he resides, so he'll probably have some kind of headquarters that he operates out of. Could be this area in the Middle East, but it's mostly the world system. And tonight we're talking about the world religious system. Next week we'll talk about the world financial system and all of it's got going on, which is referred to as Babylon. So is that clear? All right. So this is they will reunite the whole world, as I said, in one religious system. And it is a false system because it's driven by Satan to deceive the world. Okay? It's Satan, remember, he's behind the Antichrist. He's behind the false prophet. He's behind every bit of this. This is a revolt of Satan to come up against God, and he's using men to do it. So, any questions or comments to this point? Not, we'll go to verse 6. Everybody understand this so far? And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. That's pretty interesting that John would say that. But before we get to that, the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs, what does that mean? Remember, we talked about what drunken means. It gives you a little hint. What does that mean? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Be drunken to be controlled by, right? So not only was this, I believe what John is telling us here, not only was her purpose or her focus was to get you to worship the beast, but she was controlled with the passion to get rid of the saints of God, to kill them all, to get rid of anybody that professed during this time that professed Jesus as Lord. Okay? So she was, yes, pointing people to Antichrist worship, but her underlying goal was to get rid of anybody that wouldn't do that, i.e. Christians, saints, whatever. She had a passion and is driven to get rid of all those. And when John see this, he wondered. My thinking here is, why would John wonder with great admiration? Why am I having such a hard time tonight?
Well, the hippie Bible, which you don't like, says, when I saw her, I was greatly astonished.
Right.
Which, to me, sounds better than admire.
Well, it's, the point is that he was blown away.
Yeah. But admire
What?
almost makes it sound like he would want to be like her or, something like that. When you admire somebody, you think highly of them. Whereas if you're astonished, you're like, whoa.
I don't think you want to be nothing like him.
Well, I know, but that word itself typically
Right.
means, like, I admire you.
Okay, I see that. I can see yeah. He pondered it a lot.
Yeah.
He was blown away by what he had saw that she was driven by, and why. I think what he's saying here, why is this? I mean, the beast is in control of everything. Why is this false prophet, this false church, so influential? I mean, we've already talked about this harlot, this church has pushed everybody to worship the beast and to take his mark. And why? So the beast has all the authority and power, and And he's the one with the horns and all these different, and heads and all that. What's going on with this harlot? So he was astonished that she had such power and authority during that time, is what I believe that he's getting at here. And the angel picks up on that and says, and the angel said to me, wherefore didst thou marvel? There's another one, marvel, astonished, admiration. Now, the angel even realized, saw that John's like, huh? Wow. Where did she get, or where did this get this much power? He said, I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, the thing you need to understand. You got to look through a spiritual lens to understand this mystery. And of the beast that carrieth her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns. Here again, she was riding, now the beast is carrying her. The beast is bringing her with us. That's her number one thing. And to me, that's, we see it now. I used to get so tickled I still do. But there was a particular one of Tennessee that tried to quote scripture and didn't have no idea what he was quoting to try to become president. You see it all the time in political arenas. They try to look to appease to the church people, the evangelical people, to get their votes. I think this is the same thing. The Antichrist is carrying this false religious system because you can do great things through religion. I mean, you can come up with all the laws and policies and politics you want to, but the fact is people are fighting in the name of religion, and you'll never stop it because it's something they believe deep inside them. So the Antichrist knows this. That's why he's carrying this false system with him. I'm going to use religion to deceive them. Pretty scary, isn't it? So this is the same thing that political leaders are doing now. I'm not saying any political leaders now are the Antichrist, but I believe they are precursors. They're pictures of it. I believe President Obama showed a lot of how the whole world could be deceived. If you don't like me for that, I'm sorry. But he deceived a lot of folks. President Trump, I like him, don't have anything against him, but are you seeing everything he's doing in the world, going around and causing peace everywhere and meeting with all these dignitaries and doing? I'm not saying he's the Antichrist. Better, he's doing a lot of things like the Antichrist appears to do, but I don't think he's the Antichrist. But I do believe that the Antichrist is watching and he's learning through what these people are doing. I believe that with all my heart. I believe he's on the scene now. I may be wrong, but I believe God allows these things to take place because this Antichrist is not just going to, the first 3.5 years, he's pretty much go off of his own wisdom and his own understanding of things, and he seems very intellectual and very electrical, and smart. He's working out of his own wisdom pretty much until the middle where Satan enters him, and he's under full control of Satan. So he's learning from somewhere. He's gathering information, and I think he's watching what world leaders are doing now. He's learning how he's going to get the whole world to follow him. Does that make sense? Not saying Trump is or Obama. I'm not naming any names. I'm just saying that things take place, and if you'll watch them, I mean, what Trump is doing right now is, I mean, if he comes up and says that they're going to have that Israel can rebuild their temple, guys, you need to hold on. I honestly think we'll be gone before that actually takes place, but he's done all but that, pretty much. And it's kind of, if you look at, if you know what Scripture says, all right, I better move on from that. I know y'all are looking at me like a calf looking at a new gate here. I'm not against Trump. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Satan is using different things. God's using different things to put things in place for the Antichrist to do what he does. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions, comments on that? Think I'm crazy? Might as well. Robin thinks I'm crazy. So, All right, so he's carrying that, the Antichrist is making sure he's got the religious system on his side because he knows that's going to get him a lot of influence. And that's why he carries her. And the beast that thou sawest, verse 8, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and that they dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. All right, I'm going to stop right there just for a minute. The beast which thou sawest, the Antichrist, who is not and shall ascend out of the bottom. You say, well, wait a minute, Satan ascended out of the bottomless pit, right? At this point, Satan is fully, it's like Jesus told Judas, what thou must do quickly. And Judas got up and left, and it says Satan entered into him. I believe that's why it's given the reference of the beast coming up, because the beast come up out of the sea. Satan come out of the bottomless pit. Satan has fully indwelt the Antichrist at this point. Does that make sense? You're looking at me kind of funny sideways.
So is he corrupted, or is he?
He's fully possessed. How about fully possessed, not by just demons, but Satan himself, I believe at this point. I believe that's why he gives him the reference here, the beast that thou sawest and is not shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. He's fully possessed by Satan at this point, fully controlled by Satan. And it is not, who was not, and then he's going to go into perdition and all those things that he's talking about. Remember back in a few chapters ago where, I think chapter 13, that he died and came back to life. He was and then is not. Remember that. That's going to be important in some of the other things that we understand.
Is he trying to mimic the death and resurrection of Christ?
I believe absolutely. Satan is always mimicking and trying to do a counterfeit, trying to set himself up as God. He's God, he's got the Antichrist, and he's got the false prophet. That's the unholy trinity. And Jesus came and died and rose again. The Antichrist is going to die and appear to rise again. He copies everything God does to deceive the nations. If I can do, boy, this sounds a whole lot like Jesus. He must be the Messiah. That's how he's going to deceive the nations. He's going to mimic God in several ways. All right. So here is the mind which hath wisdom. That means listen, pay attention, listen closely. It's something you need to understand. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. All right? This gets real kind of confusing. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth.
Is that Rome?
A lot of people think it's Rome because it's a city on 7 hills that a lot comes up. I want you to take away from this is that the Antichrist is in control of these 7 hills. A lot of people think that's where he's going to set up his home base, is in Rome, because of that. Could be the place in Babylon. We don't know for sure because it hadn't happened. We can speculate, but she's sitting on this. In other words, she's in control with the Antichrist in this same area because we know that's where he's in control, or whatever that is. So it says there's a deeper meaning to this when he says, here's the mind of wisdom. There's a deeper spiritual meaning. Spiritual wisdom takes to understand this. So let's try to understand this. She's ruling with the Antichrist during this time. Great influence in all the world. She's caused the whole world to worship the beast, to take the mark of the beast. It's a one world religious system. And then he goes on and says here, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet to come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. What in the world does all that mean? This is where you get the deeper spiritual meaning. This is where you got to tie in other scripture in the Bible. And we've talked about it already. Remember back in Daniel chapter 2? Remember the statue that he saw? I believe this is what he's tying in here. 7 kingdoms, basically. 5 are fallen. And 1 is, and the other is yet to come. So he's talking about 7. And you go back to Daniel chapter 2 and the image, remember, there that has the Babylonian people, the Medo-Persian, and the Greece. And in Rome, talking about the head and the legs, that Rome is split in the 2 legs and all that stuff that we went over. Y'all remember that, right? Okay, but you say, well, that's not 5, that's only 4 or only 3, right? What scholars with a higher pay grade than me will tell us and understand what John is talking about is all the different kingdoms throughout the ages that have come up against God or against Israel. So there are 2 more you can add here, and that's Egypt and Assyria. Remember, Egypt had Israel in bondage? So if you add those to Egypt and Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, there's 5 that have fallen. 5 world kingdoms that have fallen to this point. He's given you a prophetic timeline of what's taken place. And 1 is, who was in control when John wrote this? Rome. That's the one that is, the Roman Empire. And then he says, so these are, let me back up. When John writes this, Rome is in power, so that's what is. And all these kingdoms have been in opposition of God and his people throughout the ages. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and another one's yet to come. What's he talking about? The Antichrist, Babylon, the world system that is it's the last result. It's the great Babylon, the final revolt of Satan to come against God and his people. And that's going to be the rule of the Antichrist. And he's just giving you a prophetic timeline of that there. Does that make sense to everybody? And the beast which was and is not, he died and appeared to come back to life. Even he is the 8th and the 7th, and he goeth into perdition. Huh? I can be 7th and 8th. And don't tell me Trump was 45 and 47, okay? I don't want to hear that. But he dies, remember, halfway through the tribulation period, he appears to die and come back to life. That kingdom died, and then when he rose, he had a whole nother kingdom. He was completely influenced or possessed by Satan to rule the entire world at that time. So he's the 7th and the 8th. Does that make sense? Maybe?
So now he's the beast and dragon.
Now he's still the beast. The Antichrist is the beast. Satan is still the dragon, but he's fully influenced by the dragon. It's like Satan himself, yes. But it is the Antichrist. Isn't Revelation so easy to understand? All right, so let me get on here to verse 12. Is there any comments, questions? Everybody understand this at this point? Yes, ma'am.
So is it the assumption or the understanding that the people that are left and they're all in this one big church, that they think the Antichrist is Christ, or they know that's not?
I think they think he is Christ, or he is the Messiah, is what I believe. Now, I'll talk about that in just a minute when I wrap this up finally. My theory, my hunch. Because all of Israel's going to, even though he goes against them, even Israel kind of follows him. The the non-believing Israel. Kind of the whole world follows him. And I believe there's a reason for that. Let me go through the 10 horns, and then and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which had received no kingdom as yet, but received power as a king 1 hour with the beast. What are these 10 kingdoms? I believe are the 10 federations, world federations. They talk about it all the time now. They're talking about dividing up the world into 10 different rule. I mean, Russia and America and all to control or to have power on all the earth. They talk about the federation, the European Federation. Many have said that for years, that's what this is going to be, the UN. But understand this, we don't know for sure because it hasn't happened, and we can speculate all we want. But I believe the UN and things like that are precursors again to what the Antichrist is going to do. He's in control of the whole world, and he's got this 10 nation or 10 king confederation that works with him, supports him in every way, and gets the world to do what he wants them to do. So that's what these 10 kingdoms are. Remember the 10 toes of Daniel's of King Nebuchadnezzar's statue that Daniel explains to him? There's 10 nations, 10 toes under the Antichrist. And by the way, we'll see in a little bit in verse 14, where the Lamb comes and destroys all that. And Daniel's, a rock is thrown and destroys it. In Daniel's prophecy, that rock is Jesus, the chief cornerstone. Okay, just a little extra, no charge for that. But anyway, verse 13, and these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So this 10 kingdom federation have power, but they do it all under the leadership and authority of the beast, the whole world. All right. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For the Lord, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. He just throws this in here that through the leadership or the Satan's influence, the Antichrist and these 10 nations are going to, we just talked about it some last week, are going to come again and go against God. And God's going to laugh. God's going to defeat them. Jesus will defeat, and John is just pointing that out here, because he is the King of kings and Lord of lords. He bows to no one. But the called, chosen, and faithful, who's that? That's us. We'll see in Revelation 19, when he returns on the white horse to defeat the Antichrist and the nations, that we come with him. So that's in chapter 19 when we get there. Paul tells us this in 2 Thessalonians 2:8. He says, and then shall the wicked be revealed, the Antichrist, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy them with the brightness of his coming. So they're going to go up against God, and God's going to have to get this big old army together, and they're going to fight for months. No. God's going to go, whoosh, and they're going to be gone. Okay? They're no match. Okay? It's not even in the same ball field. So Paul sort of gives us that picture there in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So remember when he first started out at the beginning, the whore that sits on many waters, she's controlling all the world, is basically what it says. And he explains that here in verse 15 of what the many waters are. We talked about the waters before that could be mostly the Gentile nations. This is still the time of the Gentiles, okay, that is talked about. So verse 16, I'm running out of time. And then the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. You go back to verse 1, he says, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore, that sitteth upon many waters. How does her judgment come? How does God allow her judgment to come? Through these 10 nations and through the Antichrist. They hate this false system. They don't want this false system anymore. Remember, this is what the chapter all started about. I'm going to show you the judgment of the false system. Well, it just come crashing down. These 10 kings come up against it, this confederation, the Antichrist. They hate the religious system and want to do away with it. Why? He had such political power over that. He's got it all now. People are following him, worshiping him. The Antichrist doesn't want the world to have any other religion other than him. So it kind of tells me in this, why would the Antichrist hate this false system if it's all about him? I think it's a system, as I told you, and I told you I was going to tell you why I believe some things about what the Antichrist does. I believe when the church goes, he brings peace, has a peace treaty with Israel and tells them rebuild their temple. Part of what he's going to tell them, I think, a hunch, people use UFOs and, atomic bombs and weapons of bio stuff. I think he's going to tell them a half-truth, just like Satan has always done through history. He told Eve a half-truth. He's always used a half-truth and turned it into a lie. I kind of think the Antichrist just might tell them those Christians were right. And if you'll follow me, I'm the Messiah, you can get to God. And the whole world's going to follow him. Well, now at this point, he don't need that because they're following him. And he don't want them to get to God. Satan wants them to get to who? Him. He wants to be worshiped as God. So let's do away with this religious system that has anything about a Messiah or God in heaven. Let's worship the Antichrist and Satan. So he wants to get rid of it. Kind of backs up my hunch as to what he might tell them.
Makes sense.
So I don't know, but that's where I get that from. Jesus said in Matthew 24, 23 through 24, then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. He's giving them a warning here. And this thing that he's going through in Revelation 24 is about the end times for Israel. And he said, don't follow these that say they're the Christ. He says, for there shall arise false Christ and false prophets, and show great signs which we've seen, and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, he would deceive the very elect. If it were possible. Those who say, oh, we're going to go through the tribulation, the rapture's not till the end or the middle of it and all that, you better be careful. Jesus said that even you will be deceived if you're here. I believe the reason it says is if it were possible is because we're not going to be here. Because God knows if we were here, we'd probably be deceived too. It's going to be that powerful, that strong of a deception. I mean, he's going to do all these wonders and signs and I'm the Messiah and all. I mean, why wouldn't you follow this guy? Could even deceive the very elect. Don't follow him. And Christ says, he goes on to say, when I come back, the whole world will know it's me. And as lightning comes from the east or west and all that, he says, I'm coming back with great thunderings and light like the world has never seen. So there will be no doubt that it's me when I'm coming back. I'm not going to give out little minions to go out and say, hey, I found Jesus out in the wilderness. No, it's not going to be that. The whole world's going to see him as we will see. And they'll fall in fear and trembling. All right? That makes sense? Everybody got that? You can read more about the Antichrist and the things that happen in 2 Thessalonians 2 that Paul tells us. But I just wanted to, the son of perdition is the Antichrist. He's going to oppose himself, who opposes and exalt himself above all that is called God and that is worshiped, so that he is as God, sitting in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. He doesn't want a false church anymore. He is God. And he wants to be worshipped of God. And then it says down in verse 8 of 2 Thessalonians 2, then shall the wicked be revealed, who the Lord shall, as I read that one, consume with the spirit of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, there you go, after the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. It's going to be a very sad time. Very sad time. So now he's saying, I don't want anything to do with any other kind of made religion or nothing, even if it's false. I'm God, and worship me as God. I don't need anything else. So he destroys that, the false prophet, gets rid of that, consumes all that. And why does he do that? Verse 17, for God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will. It's all God's plan. If it looks like total chaos and the whole world's all messed up and there's no order or structure, there's very much order and structure into it. God is working all things for his purpose and according to his plan, according to his will, for his glory. Even in this. And to get, he says, for God hath put in their hearts to do his will, and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast, the Antichrist, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. In other words, until all that God has told us about this is fulfilled, God is going to do it every jot and tittle, just like he said. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So the great city, I believe, is the seat of the Antichrist. All right? All that makes sense? Everybody understand chapter 17 now? It basically, you can sum it all up in about 4 verses. You can do the first 2 verses and the last 2 or 3 verses. You want to see the destruction of the false church and the false prophet? The 10 kings of the confederation led by the Antichrist is going to do away with it because it wants to be worshipped as God. And it's all according to God's will and his plan. That's chapter 17 in a nutshell. But he gives you a lot of extra information between there. Everybody good? Clear as mud.
Well, I was really struggling with the is, or was, and is not, and then is again. So when you broke that down, it helped.
Good. Praise the Lord for that.
It was clear as mud. Now I got a little bit.
All right, well, good. Good. Anything else? Any comments? Add anything?
So could this possibly be where the term tin-horn dictator came from?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But like I said, I don't know that all the things happening now are in the past. And I mean, I believe even when Rome invaded Israel and destroyed the temple in 70 AD was a precursor to what we're seeing the Antichrist going to do. But it was not it. The preterists believe, oh, that's Revelation. No, it wasn't Revelation. But it was a picture of what's going to take place in Revelation. So God gives you warnings, gives mankind warnings all through history. This is what I'm doing. This is what's going to happen. And if we know Scripture and we can pay attention, we can sort of say, wow, I see how that can happen. I think I even made the statement one time with, I'm not going to mention the name again, but one of the presidents was elected, and I just made a statement on Facebook. I always wondered how the whole world could be deceived, and now I know. I mean, people just follow anything and everything if it looks good and feels good, and especially it has a lot of money and it's gold and looks pretty. Well, I'm going to follow that.
Look at the Holocaust.
Right.
How many people died and how many
Well, and good.
followed that were not bad people to begin with, but it's just
And you know how that started out with Hitler? You know how he started out? By winning people over. I look good. I'm your friend. And then he turned. I think it's a picture of it.
A lot of the religious cults from back in the seventies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that.
The Jim Jones, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. All right. I got 7:02. I guess I better shut up. But I hope you understand that. That is the fall of the false religious system. The false prophet is driven out because the Antichrist doesn't need it anymore. And now it's the Antichrist and the 10 nations. We're going to see them fall next week in chapter 18, and not well in the next week, chapter 19. But we'll begin to see the fall of the Antichrist financial system and economic system is going to come crashing down too, as a result of the 7 bowl judgments. All right? Everybody good? Daryl, can I ask you, would you close us in prayer?
Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just thank you for all your many blessings, and Lord, we thank you for this time that we come together and gather around your word, Lord. And Lord, I just pray that you just glorify your word in our hearts, Lord, and draw us closer to thee. And Lord, help us understand these things, Lord, that we may be just a better Christian and drawn to you, and Lord, that we might be a witness to a dying world out there. And Lord, I pray that you just dismiss us now to your